So, now Series 12 is over, I've got another Doctor Who finale to add to the list, and it's now time for me to do a re ranking of the Doctor Who series finales from 2005 to 2020. All 12 of them, and off we go. I may have done a list like this before, but yeah. And to try and keep this as short as possible, I'll be giving a ranking where it comes on the list, and then maybe a sentence or two about why it ended up where it did. I don't really have that much time for a full thing. But, starting off, number 12 from Series 6, The Wedding of River Song. Throughout the entire run of NuWho, I admit Series 6 is probably the one I consider the weakest. I mean, I'm sure there are going to be some people out there who disagree with me, but I don't know. It's just, I get the idea they're trying to give more to River Song, finally show us who she is, but I'm not entirely sure. And I think the main problem with the finale is that it's just a bit overly rushed. I mean, if they could have given us more time, then maybe maybe two episodes just to kind of take in this mad world. Maybe it could have done more. But number 12 on my list. Number 11 from series 11, The Battle of Ranskor Av Kolos. Not a bad end for Jodie Whittaker's first series. Not a bad one at all. But compared to all the other series finales, it doesn't really have very much high stakes, or really any stakes at all. I mean, it's not bad, and for the first series where they didn't want to do any kind of returning monsters or kind of big double episodes, the Battle of Ranskor Kolos is fine. It's just compared to everything else, it's fairly low. Number 10, The Pandorica Opens and the Big Bang. I remember being quite scared of the end of part one. I mean, when the Doctor's locked away inside the Pandorica. That, to me, was some pretty hard-hitting stuff. The only thing that kind of really pulls this story down is it goes a little mad in part two. I mean, it's not necessarily bad. Not by any means. I mean, it once again has some fun and goes really kind of all out for the series finale, but I don't know, just everything kind of feels overly mad and kind of put together by the end, and I don't know. It ends up at my number 10. Number 9, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways from Series 1. People are going to sacrilege me for this, for placing it so down the list, but it's not a bad story. It's a perfectly good story. It's got some fun moments, it's got some dark moments, it was the only one that Christopher Eccleston got to have. It's a really good story. The only reason why it's not higher is, well, the game shows do kind of date it, especially with Big Brother and The Weakest Link having ended. Big Brother having ended recently in the UK, and The Weakest Link having been off the air now for several years. So yeah, it's kind of dated just by the game shows. Number 8, I'm sorry, Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children. As I said with my review of it, I thought it was a pretty good story, a pretty good episode, and a pretty good end for Series 12. It definitely had the kind of right amount of action and impact, but it also introduced elements that I didn't know if Doctor Who fans would be all that keen on. And having spent the past week on social media looking it over, it is divisive. There are some people who love it, some people who don't. And that's why, unfortunately, Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children comes out my number 8. I think Ascension is better than Timeless Children, but that's just me. It was a good way to end Series 12. It was big, it was epic, it was everything. But, I don't know, it kind of got a little messy. And it's got some stuff that I don't know if everyone's going to be keen on. Number 7, Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and Last of the Time Lords from Series 3. This I remember being scared of. This was kind of big stuff. I mean, having a madman show up and essentially steal the TARDIS and leaving the Doctor, Martha, and Captain Jack stuck at the end of the universe, that was big stuff. And then everything kind of ramped up in The Sound of Drums, and then more and more in Last of the Time Lords. This felt like a big epic story that deserved a 3-parter, and it brought back some stuff I really liked. I mean, the only reason it's this far down the list at number 7 is that there's a lot of good stuff in the series finales, and this is just where it ended up. So, yeah, the three-parter from Series 3 is at number 7. Number 6, Heaven Sent and Hell Bent from Series 9. People have said Heaven Sent is one of the best episodes of Doctor Who, period. And they've also said that Hell Bent is one of the worst episodes, period. I personally think people are overly harsh on Hell Bent. I can see why they consider Heaven Sent a masterpiece. Hell Bent, I don't think it's as bad as people say. I mean, I know some people are going to say, oh, the Utopia three-parters should be above Heaven Sent and Hell Bent. Fair enough, that's what you think. But I actually think it's pretty good. I mean, they did an incredible job with Heaven Sent. And then Hellbent, well, it's not necessarily a part 2, it's more its own story. They still managed to do some pretty good stuff with it. Number 5, The Name of the Doctor from Series 7. Now, while Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children introduced an element that I wasn't sure whether Doctor Who fans would be entirely ready to take in, The Name of the Doctor does it well. It does it brilliantly. And while this, as the end of Series 7, was more a kind of setup for the Day of the Doctor, rather than tying into Christmas or just wrapping up the series as a whole, it introduced a new element to Doctor Who that would fill in a gap that we had in our Doctor Who knowledge, and also provide an element of darkness. And The Name of the Doctor, we've got brilliant villain with Richard E. Grant as the Great Intelligence, and the reveal of John Hurt as the Doctor. That's brilliant. And that's why Name of the Doctor comes in at my number 5. Number 4, Dark Water and Death in Heaven from Series 8. I still remember being terrified at the end of Dark Water. I mean, okay, you've got the Cybermen marching down on London, that's fair enough. That's already pretty dark. But then when it was revealed who Missy was, I suddenly had flashbacks of John Sims' Master. And then finding out that this one was the Master, I was like, oh, shit. And suddenly things just became a whole lot darker. And I love Dark Water and Death in Heaven for that. I mean, I admit Death in Heaven is not quite as strong as Dark Water, but I love it. My number 3 goes to another Master and Cybermen story, World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls from Series 10. I remember the ending at the end of World Enough in Time, and while I could see it coming from a mile away, the moment that it was revealed that Bill was the Mondasian Cyberman, or Mondasian Cyberman, I found that horrifying. I mean, I could see it coming from a mile away, but honestly, it was chilling. And then part 2 manages to build and build and build, and eventually just everything slotted together so nicely. And it's chilling, it's dark, it's epic, and that's why it's my number 3. Number 2, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday from Series 2. Some people may argue with me as to why this is so far up the list. It just is. I mean, I still think that the cliffhanger at the end of Army of Ghosts is one of the greatest cliffhangers Doctor Who has ever had. Just Cybermen all over planet Earth, all over Torchwood, everywhere, and then just them saying, why did you create that sphere? How? Like, sphere isn't ours. It broke down the barrier between worlds. We only followed. And then when it's opened, it's revealed what's inside, the 4 Daleks. It's just like, we're doomed. Just that moment alone is brilliant. And the end of Doomsday is still one of the saddest pieces of Doctor Who they ever managed. And it still rocks me to my core. But it's not my number 1. For my number 1, Doctor Who series finale is The Stolen Earth and Journey's End from Series 4. And once again, I'm going to have people arguing and be like, why is this one so high? You should have had some of the others higher. It's like, this is mine. I'm sorry, it just is mine. This is I've heard people say this is like Doctor Who's version of the Avengers, 4 years before the Avengers hit the big screen. But yeah, everything just comes together brilliantly. It's a crossover between Doctor Who, Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures. Everyone comes together in one big thing. You're a brilliant villain with Julian Bleach as Davros, and the stakes are off the charts. Just they're so high, and just everything comes together in a truly epic way, and the ending is heartbreaking. And that's why it's my number one. So there you go, my finale rankings of Doctor Who, from Bad Wolf through to The Timeless Children. My ranking of all 12. We'll have to see what the next finale will look like. I've heard it's coming in 2021. Hopefully it does. But until then, see ya.